Hello and welcome back to another episode, recording interview in my series Tranthropology. And today I am here with my first guest, who's actually someone I know prior to this conversation. This is my good friend, Kalani Rohleder. Hey, Kalani.
Hi.
It's funny though, because I didn't know your last name before today.
I didn't know your last name until eventually you remade your Instagram with your last name, to be
Yeah.
honest. And we haven't talked in a couple of years, but I figure we always kind of have that the same thing. You know what I mean? Like we
Yeah. You and
uh
I were two of we were in the kind of handful of late 20s, early 30s trans girls
yeah.
on the trans girl Discord during
hmm
COVID lockdown times. That's how we met.
God, we were being moms to all those like 20-year-olds,
Oh God,
but
yeah.
like so many times.
Yes. And I guess so Kalani, we're recording these conversations for the benefit of future queer people, future
hmm
scholars. So just in case, Discord is a a internet-based
hmm
application that we in our current time use to form kind of closed off groups, in which we can have conversations, video chats, kind of
hmm
yeah, little online communities, and it's very popular at this time amongst trans people.
hmm Especially during the Great Plague, you see.
Yes, in the Great Plague.
The Great Plague era.
Um, yeah, God, who knows what all this shit's going to be called 200 years from now.
I've honestly thought about this a lot because I'm like, damn, we keep living through interesting times. What are they going to call it? Like every 10 years, they're going to name it something worse. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I mean, you read about Chinese history, and like
yeah.
before the Han Dynasty was the Warring States period,
hmm
or I guess was it before Han? It doesn't matter. But yeah, you have these like 200
hmm
years of time called like the Warring States period, and it's like that must be crazy. And it's like, oh, I see. It just is crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's actually crazy. The more you read about it, it's like, oh, great bloodshed. Yes. Okay.
I feel like
Okay.
we're kind of at the we're still in the earlier stage of it's some era like that. Like if there are historians in the future, if humanity and civilization make it out,
hmm
we're gonna have it's gonna be some period. It's gonna be called like the turmoil or
Yeah. Like,
something. The
honestly,
collapse.
the last 100 years before this was like starting with like the Irish famine now has been like constant, unending, weird genocide somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
and it of course it was like that before it, but it's like the condensate, you know, that
Oh.
period of this period of time is kind of crazy.
And we're back. Sorry about that. We had some just audio things to sort out. We're talking about imagining where y'all are in the future. And I mean, I guess for this entire project to like have any sort of future value at all as video, that means you still have some means of accessing and playing these files. So that's good. If you're watching it, congratulations. We haven't fallen too far. And
They've invented a way to like just put it right in your brain instantly.
oh no,
Uh-huh.
you're watching this via Neuralink.
Yeah, the
Uh,
8G. You have 8G waves.
oh, and for future scholars, it's a reference to a modern day conspiracy theory about 5G cellular towers.
Yep.
God, I love it. I love this conceit. I'm leaning into it more this time than I have in
It's
the
funny.
previous two episodes.
I like it,
Uh,
so it's funny.
but let's get to what we're actually here for, Kalani,
Mhm.
and that is to learn about you and your experiences as just a person alive today in 2025, specifically a trans person alive today in 2025. And
Mm.
this is going to be a free-flowing conversation. Uh, and just like before I start and get into the biographical stuff, is there anything just right off the top that like when I say let's talk about you and being a trans person in 2025 that pops into your head as like I need to say this right now?
Oh, like I amongst the names I use the name Radiant, and the reason I use that is because like we have to be like out. We have to be like we gotta burn them. You know what I mean? We have to in our resilience we must like in some way inflict upon them our beauty.
I see. This is sort of like a Zeus exposing his true form and
Yeah,
burning
kind
the
of like
eyes
that.
of
Trans people need to
Selene.
do that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at.
You know what? I agree. Um, Perfect. So, Kalani, let's just start. I just want the basic info.
Mhm.
Uh, First, how old are you?
I'm 30 years old. I'm about to be 31 in 3 months.
Congratulations.
hmm
And where are you from?
I'm from Belton, Missouri, or Grandview, Missouri. Both of them are pretty close. Kansas City, they're in a suburb of Kansas City.
Nice. Were you born there?
Yes, I was born in Belton, Missouri. It's one of my favorite places to this day.
Yeah, what about it?
It's just a simple place. I mean, it's kind of been devastating to watch these urban sprawl overtake my small town. As in, like, we have a Quiznos and a Fazoli's. We have these horrible chain restaurants of corporatism that have like slowly destroyed the town. Like it used to be like a housing development, some military housing, a Walmart, and then forest. And now there's no forest around Belton.
Hmm.
Um, I love that city, but it is sometimes difficult. Like one day, after a couple months of not going back, I went back and I saw that like my childhood playground, like the forests around where I used to live, were gone. We're like all toppled over and shredded.
Yeah. And is that like where you grew up? Did you go to school there?
Yeah, I went to school there, like Belton and Grandview. Grandview was most of it. But I did live in Belton after my parents split up when I was like 10, 11.
Hmm. On the subject of your parents, can you just give us a sense of like who were they?
Um, my birth parents, like I had a tumultuous childhood, let's say. My birth parents were not always very kind people. They were good people. They had me at 16. They did their best to raise me. I was raised by my Hawaiian family, so my two great aunts and my grandmother, and my uncles. My parents were the two oldest of the family, so my uncles and aunts were like 10 when I was born, so they
Hmm.
kind of helped raise me as well. But they eventually like they didn't get to have a cool teenage young adulthood, and then 10 years down the line they were like when they started cheating on each other, it was a whole thing. It's
Yeah.
sometimes very odd because my birth father, um, I am almost an exact clone of him. Like, and by that I mean I don't look anything like him. Like he is a 6'2" white man with blue eyes and black hair.
So not the Hawaiian side.
No, my mom is actually very white too. She got all of her father's traits somehow. I'm also like a quarter Native American somewhere in there too. I don't. It happens in the Midwest, I guess.
Your mom is half white, half like indigenous
Hawaiian.
Hawaiian.
Yeah, so I'm actually only a quarter Hawaiian, and then I'm like a quarter Native American, and the rest is like Scottish and Polish.
Okay.
I'm like a very odd mix, but because I was raised by my Hawaiian family, I just find a lot more. I find I fit into that ethnic group the
Yeah.
best because of the way I was raised.
How long had your Hawaiian family been in Belton?
They lived like in the outskirts of Belton. So Hawaii, like my grandmother as a child came over after World War II in Pearl Harbor because the U.S. did not want us on that land anymore. They'd
Hmm.
been trying to kill all of us for a period of about 200 years, really. Like we weren't allowed to speak our native language. We weren't allowed to practice our culture. Even our ways of queerly expressing ourselves were suppressed under Western religious rule for a decent amount of time, unfortunately. Um,
Hmm.
my like Hawaiian grandmother, they have Hawaiian names, but it's their middle name, and they didn't really know much Hawaiian. Like they did, but it was kind of vague for them.
Yeah. And just out of interest, I mean, we're here preserving information about people.
hmm
Do you happen to know like which island your Hawaiian family came from, or
I think it was Oahu.
Oahu?
hmm
And they ended up in Belton, Missouri, which seems like an unusual place for them to end up. But
The the American government back after World War II was giving away land at a very, very cheap rate, and
mm,
therefore, when we were pushed off the island by growing expansion, and also like by expansion I mean white people built homes where native people lived, and then
yeah,
evicted them or in some way got rid of them. My grandmother and grandfather, who was a white man, he was stationed there during and after Pearl Harbor, and found a Hawaiian wife, moved to the middle of Kansas. My great grandmother was actually like very dark, like extremely dark skinned, because Native Hawaiians back in the day were very dark skinned. It's actually because of our Hawaii is actually a fun cultural mishmash. Like we are Tahitian and Samoan and a few other island races that have colonized Hawaii over 1,000 years ago. So like King Kamehameha that united the islands and basically made one big tribe was actually mostly Samoan. Polynesia is very fun. That's a whole other topic. But
Yeah.
I gotta say the balls on my great grandfather though. He marries a beautiful Hawaiian woman, takes her into the middle of Kansas. Undoubtedly, that's racist. It was during Jim Crow, and my grandma talks about that, about like how they experienced a lot of the same stuff that black people did for the same reason, for the simple reason that they were dark.
Wait, so it was your great grandfather married a Hawaiian woman?
Yes,
So
he was like
your grandmother is half Hawaiian?
yes. So that's why I'm like a quarter or an eighth. I can't remember the exact
And it would be
timeline
an eighth.
actually.
If that were the case, if your grandma were half Hawaiian, you'd be an
See, I
eighth.
can't remember very well. I have to state that all of my Hawaiian family is also dead. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, I was like my great aunts are like they died when they were like in their 40s and 50s.
Hmm.
One with breast cancer, another with like unmanaged diabetes.
Yeah. But were they who raised you? Was that when you say you were raised by your Hawaiian family? Is it these great aunts?
It was my aunt Deborah and my great aunt Vicky. They're both my great aunts technically,
Mm.
because they're my grandmother's sisters. There was Charlene, Vicky, and Deborah. Deborah, the youngest, died first at like 43 or 42 of breast cancer. She got breast cancer, got the loppet off of me,
Mm.
and but it spread through her whole body, and she eventually died after she went into remission. It was sad.
That's
I
very
was
sad.
like I was like 7 or 8.
Mm.
Vicky died when I was like 19. Um, but
And did your birth parents have any other kids? Like, do you have any siblings that
oh
grew
yeah,
up? Yeah.
oddly, because of the nature of our relationship, like our parents were abusive, so we don't. In our adulthood, we don't know each other, unfortunately. Or rather, I've tried to forge that connection, and they're fine with me being trans. They just don't care to maintain those like close connections.
Yeah.
It's something that when you grow up in a difficult households, like where you can't trust your closest family, you sometimes like have a breakdown in the ability to form that relationship at all. And my brothers were the same way. I have two full-blooded siblings, and then I had 7 step siblings
Oh, wow.
throughout like by the years of like 10 to like 20. Like
Yeah.
my youngest half-blood sibling is 9.
And where are you? Are you
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest of this
Yeah.
whole crew.
I'm the oldest of 10 total.
Wow.
Because
That's a
of
lot
all
of
the
siblings.
steps. Yeah. There's 2 half-blood siblings, there's 2 full-blood siblings, and then there's several other step siblings.
And so you're growing up in Belton, Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like, what is that like? You call it a city, but is it a city? Is it a small town?
It was kind of a small town. Like it's about 20 minutes outside of Kansas City, like 25 minutes. So it's like it's kind of one of those things. It was a military town. They built like rockets. They had silos there.
Hmm.
It's full of military housing because that's where it was. It has railroads going all through it. That's why it was a town in the first place, is it has a creek and a railroad.
Yeah.
It wasn't that bad. Like I grew up on a farm for the first like several years of my life, like on the outskirts of Belton. That my parents bought a house during the 2001 during the housing crashes of 2000 to 2005. Oh, kind of got ruined by that one, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But Belton was a really good place actually to grow up. Like it's oddly, and I always have to preface by saying I've been like 6 feet tall, like 200 and something pounds of muscle since I was like 14. So like
Yeah.
I didn't get bullied, but like people, how do I put this? Grandview and Belton have a diverse enough populace that it is easy that it is easier to be diverse and accepted, but that doesn't mean you don't face anything. There's still hicks, and there's still like people that don't understand. There's the very, very religious, uh, like Grandview, where I grew up for like until I was 14, is like a predominantly black area. Like it is
Mm.
a 60% black area because my grandmother at the time could buy a house there. Like it was, there's a lot of redlining in Kansas City,
Yeah.
uh, and it kind of leads to these very strange like neighborhoods being formed. Like Grandview is predominantly black because that's where they could live. That's where any person of color could live around Kansas City.
When you say your grandmother could buy a house there, you mean as a brown person? Like that's where she was
Yes,
legally allowed to?
yes. Like okay, Reese and Nickel. I don't know. I don't think Reese and Nickel is like a nationwide corporation, but Reese and Nickel were two real estate owners and land developers at back in the like 40s, 50s, and 60s that would pressure banks not to give loans to people of color or
Yeah.
women. Would not sell would find a reason not to sell property to people of color, and it led to what we call the Troost line. Troost is a road in Kansas City that on one side you have like a fairly well-off white area of like cottage-looking homes. You know what I mean? Like they all look like storybook houses.
Hmm.
They're like $500,000 for like a small cottage-looking thing, but it's like immaculate. Like it's like no trash, nothing. Other side of the 4 lane like miniature inner city highway type area are condemned abandoned houses that are on purpose kind of left to rot because it drives down the property value of where brown people could live.
I see. It's very much an other side of the tracks
It's yeah,
situation.
it's like there's a lot of parts of Kansas City, and it's not because they're not more dangerous. Like I've lived in them my whole life. Um, I lived on 85th and Holmes, which is like 2 streets away from Troost, and not on the good side. I lived there, and yeah, like there's great police presence. There is a higher rate of crime, and there is a large rate of poverty, but it's not more dangerous if you know what you're doing or if you live there. I don't know how
Sure.
to put it.
Yeah. I want to get back to you being a kid growing up here. Just like some kind of establishing questions for anyone
Hmm.
watching, because we can we can see you a little bit on a Zoom camera, but it's kind of
Hmm.
hard to get a sense. So like when you were a kid in Belton or a teenager, would you say that people tended to read you as white, or like were you read as like kind of not white? Like what was your experience?
This is it's like a very fascinating question because like in many ways I've been on the outside of like a weird binary for most of my life because like there's a lot of focus on like white and black relationships or like neighborhoods, um, but Hawaiians, there aren't very many of us and they don't live in Kansas City. There's actually a fairly decent population because of like how people were resettled,
Hmm.
but like it's not somewhere where you could find a lot of us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've always been on like the outside of that where it's like I can't access either culture very well. Like white kids would be like, well, you're kind of brown. And black kids would be like, well, you're not part of our culture, but you can kind of hang. You know what I mean?
But that's
And
how, like, that was how you were read. Because
mhm.
I know, like, mixed race people of all kinds, and especially, yeah, as you're saying, like, coming from a less recognizable race,
Mhm.
um, I know people get all kinds of different reactions.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of questions like, hey, are you Greek or are you like,
Okay.
especially after 9/11, people were like, and like after 9/11, I was a boy at the time, so I was like 7, 8, and I had like black fluffy hair and I had a big nose. And people would just constantly be like, "Are you Jewish?"
I
And
see.
I'd be like, "No, I'm not Jewish." And they'd be like, "So," and I'm like, "No, I'm Hawaiian," and a variety of other things. There's never been that many people that look like me. I think that's one of the like defining parts of who I am as a person is like forging my own path for the simple reason that there aren't many people that like have gone through what I have or like can understand me in that way, but also like look like me or
Yeah.
are cultured in the same way as I am.
Yeah.
Um,
And growing up as a teenager in Belton, um, like what or younger, just like
mhm.
what were you like as a kid? Do you remember? Like,
I was considered a genius. Like I
oh,
was when I was a child, I had hyperlexia, so I would basically my parents put me on ADHD meds at like 8 years old. And it was like, it was Adderall, Vyvanse. It was, I can't remember. There's several others that I would cycle out of. I grow immune to medication weirdly, like in a fairly decent fashion.
What is hyperlexia?
Oh, the I don't know what to say there.
Uninitiated.
The uninitiated. Hyperlexia just means you read really good. It just means you're good at hyper-focusing on reading and you can remember a lot of it. That's it.
Oh,
like, it's not... It's
you're
something...
a bookworm.
Yeah, you're just a bookworm, basically. But it's like... It's an ADHD and autistic trait in children that they, like, enjoy reading a lot. Like, I didn't do much coloring and stuff as a kid. I didn't value it. I didn't know how to do it. It would make me too annoyed.
Yeah.
And I loved reading about dragons. I read Lord of the Rings at like 9 years old. Like, my parents tried to see if I could skip a few grades, but I did not. They didn't want me to skip 2, and so they just kind of didn't do it at all, which I'm fine with. I didn't care.
Yeah. I tried reading The Fellowship in 3rd grade, and I got to the Council of Elrond, and I was like so bored. I gave up.
I know. I was weirdly like, there's tons of stuff that like I read as a kid and I can remember it perfectly, but I also just have a weird memory with reading. Like Game of Thrones, you can quote to me from pretty much anywhere in the books and I can tell you what's happening, where you are, like what like the plot threads are happening around that chapter because I've read Game of Thrones, all of the books like 5-6 times now.
Yeah, that's me with Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
So you're a smart kid, a bookworm, and like not drawing, were you in any other ways an artsy kid?
Not really. I mean, I actually wrote like whenever we had like you had to write like your own children's book or something. I remember doing that and I was like kind of proud of it. I actually found it the other day, like in an old box of stuff. And I was like, I was kind of cooking. Damn. Like,
all right.
It was about the Easter Bunny losing all of his eggs and having to go to different countries and finding them.
Okay, and that's pretty sick, actually.
I was kind of cooking. I was like, you go to Australia, there's a pouch full of them on a kangaroo. You got to swindle that kangaroo.
That is good. You were cooking.
I was kind of cooking.
Hopefully not eggs.
Hopefully not eggs at the time. I actually did cook at a young age too, because like my parents would work so much, and I had so many younger siblings that I would just end up being like the child that did everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I know what you mean from fiction. Like, I'm familiar with the oldest kid taking care of their little siblings trope.
Yeah, it is funny. It's like a Little House on the Prairie ass.
Yeah.
But I grew up like as a very effeminate child, and people made fun of me constantly. I'm gonna be honest.
For being effeminate?
Yeah, for being like a faggy kid. Like,
well, yeah. What does that mean?
This is like a common trans femme thing, but like I was very, very autistic. I was nonverbal like for a couple of years because of like I was treated very badly by peers or my own parents. And I just refused.
You became nonverbal?
Yeah, because I just didn't want to talk to anybody.
Wow.
I was just like, fuck it, they'll just be mean to me. I ain't got time for this.
What ages?
Like, that was between like the age of like 13, 14, around there. But like when I was a younger kid, again, I've never shut up in my entire life except for those like periods.
To like middle school. That's pretty old to be nonverbal.
Middle school, I could explain why it was a terrible, terrible time for me. I was just very autistic, and I thought I didn't understand how to like. I didn't understand if people liked me. It's something I struggle with even now. Like, I can't tell if someone's making fun of me or if they like me. It's part of the reason I became so bold and prickly, because now it's like if you don't like me, I like okay. You know what I mean? I put my nuts on the table. You know what I mean? Like,
sure, yeah. It's
sorry.
That's fine. I'm trying to get my nuts on the table. The operating table. A little trans humor.
Me too. I'm not gonna lie, sister. Let's bam.
Okay, great.
Dab me up, Doug.
When you say nonverbal, is that like completely, or do you just mean like pretty nonverbal?
I mean like
you talking in class, like
like sometimes I would say like maybe I would like say like a sentence or two a day. You know what I mean? And I would do
Damn.
that for like, I would do that for weeks, and then I would have like a big talking moment. But it was because like children made fun of me, and I didn't understand how to deal with that. Because I would be like, that's mean. I wouldn't do that to
Yeah.
you. Like, damn.
You're already 6 feet tall and 200 pounds.
Yeah, like at 14, 15, like, but between the years of like 13 and 14, I grew like a foot taller and I gained 90 pounds. Like I have
Okay.
stretch marks everywhere because of that. It was just a weird period. Like in a year, I doubled in size basically.
But before that, like, you went from, was that a problem in when you were younger, like in elementary school as a kid? When you say you were considered a genius, is that like by family or was that also how you were treated in school?
I was like, yes, I was in like the advanced classes for whatever passed for advanced classes in like a poor neighborhood. It was really just that they like let all of the autistic children sit in a room that was
Sure.
quiet and
Yeah.
like be like, here's some Legos, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or like, here's a book.
So do you remember like
Hmm.
what it was about you or more specifically like what you came to believe it was about you that caused people to read you as effeminate or faggy or like
It's
because we're
I've
in the
always
yeah.
yeah, like I've always kind of like talked like I do right now. Like I've always kind of had like the feminine lilt or like the
Hmm.
gay boy lilt, depending on what you perceive it as. I don't really care. But I've always talked about like I've always talked like this. I was always like the boy that hung around the girls all of the
Mm,
time, and I just enjoyed that more. I didn't like when boys roughhoused with me. One of the reasons I
yeah.
got pretty strong and I got the reputation of like do not touch me. You know what I mean? Because like
Yeah.
you know the way boys like elbow each other, they hit each other in the nuts or like they
Yeah, I
do all
fucking
sorts of
hated
stuff.
it.
Yeah, no, I just started being like, if you ever do that to me again, I will rock'em sock'em robot your head off. And then they would do it, and I would explode them with my mind. I'm kidding. I'd punch them one time, and they'd be like, okay, I won't do that again.
Huh. Yeah.
I was the kid that like read, and if you were mean to me, I would end you. You know what I mean? But until
Sure.
that point, I was like, I just want to be left alone to read and like play D&D.
Yeah.
God, D&D is
So
yeah.
were you always like even when you were younger, were you like preferring to hang out with girls? Was that just like kind of a lifelong
Yeah, I
tr
think it was. It was that like I didn't really value sports. Like I
Yeah.
just did not I liked reading, I liked writing, I liked, you know, playing on the swing. I didn't like running or basketball very much.
Mm,
Um that and like one of the reasons like my parents had me IQ tested, which IQ again, I always have to preface especially if we're going to leave this for historians, IQ tests are stupid and they were invented by a French guy to test French third graders. And then we picked it up to test the intelligence quotient of every child in the world and
sure.
used that to justify decades and centuries of racism. Um, but I
Next,
got
you're going to
like,
tell me BMI isn't legitimate, Kalani.
whoa. Oh, yeah, by the
It's
way,
not. Future, it's not. That was
future, it's
we're
not.
being ironic.
Future, I've been obese my entire adult life and I can lift a car. Like,
So sorry, I interrupt. Your parents had you IQ tested.
my parents had me IQ tested. I got like 170, 180. So they were like, oh, this kid is like so good at rotating blocks.
Hmm.
God, this kid's going to be so good at rotating blocks in the future. Holy shit.
Damn.
And I like, I don't know. I struggle to conceptualize what the idea of the average intelligence is. Because like sometimes you do something dumb and you're like, wow, that's just I did that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like that's okay. That's just how it is.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And
Mhm.
obviously, there's like different kinds of intelligences. I'm also someone who is intelligent in the ways that like those kinds of tests are biased towards.
Yeah, that's I think
Um,
that's like why I was so good at school as well. Is like a lot of it is just like simple problem solving
yeah,
or like process of elimination. And I was really good at ADHD kids. You're just good at looking at patterns,
yeah,
and you can be like, you can just look at like a grid and be like, I know how to do this.
yeah. I mean, a lot of I in the last few years, I've done a lot of reading about like
Hmm.
there's like kind of a lot of new work on the idea of giftedness and gifted being the first thing everyone says about giftedness is that it's a terrible word because it's not a gift. It it often causes people distress. But yeah, like a lot of how people tend to define giftedness these days is based on someone's like facility with synthesizing information and drawing novel connections and
Mm-hmm.
identifying connections and patterns, but like without having to be shown them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, that kind of mind makes school a lot easier. Like,
Yeah, like I
or at least parts of it.
I've always hung out with like the punk kids. So like they're the kids that like aren't considered very bright. But like I had tons of friends throughout middle school and high school that like they weren't very good at English. Like they couldn't figure out how to grammatically categorize things, and that's fine. But you get them in a shop class and they can like assemble they
yeah.
can assemble cabinets and like bookshelves like nobody's business with just their mind and a ruler. And it's because
Yeah.
they're just like I can't picture things three-dimensionally very well. I think
Oh,
of
so you're
text.
actually not good at rotating blocks. Those
No, I'm
people
good
are really good at
I
rotating
can see
blocks.
them, but I can't.
Yeah.
It's really hard for me to figure out, like, if I move it, what it will look like in my brain. I don't know how to
Yeah.
put it.
No, I totally get you. My girlfriend is a carpenter,
Hmm.
and she is similar. Like things that are intuitive to me are very much not for her, and then things that are intuitive for her are very much not for me, and it's
Yeah.
always interesting. So and sorry, I wanted to
Hmm.
correct my image here. What is like the general demographics like where you're in school? Is it mostly white? Is it a mostly black
It's
neighborhood?
weird because like when I grew up, like young age, when I lived with my aunts on the outside of Belton. I would go to Belton elementary school, and that was a fairly mixed area, but mostly white. It's like a mostly like the demographics were like typical for this area.
Mm-hmm.
I moved to Grandview between the years of like 9 to 13 or 10 to 13 because of the turmoil you see. And that was like a predominantly black area with a lot of Latino people as well. Like there were only like 3 white kids in our class. So it
Mm.
was like a very flippy floppy
Yeah.
thing. And then I went back to Belton during the years of like 14 to like 18 to finish high school there.
Mm.
So it was like I kind of bounced back and forth. I also went to a religious school in Grandview.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question. Were you raised religious?
I like my parents had like the loosest connection to going to church ever. Like we'd go to church sometimes if they
Yeah.
remembered. It's usually because they were having troubles at home or my grandma was being rude to them. Uh, like we'd go on Easter, like we'd go on like Easter. Sometimes we'd go near Christmas or like something like that. But I remember as a kid being like, this is some dog shit. I'm not gonna like
Yeah,
I
so
was like,
you never bought in.
well, because they would always be like, your fantasy books are evil, and I'd be like, I I didn't ask. I was like, shut up, old woman.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I've always been questioning of authority. Even when I was a kid, I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And
Yeah.
they'd explain it to me, and I'd be like, that sounds like you made that up. Like,
Yeah. Hey, that's another giftedness trait.
it's
Yeah, we don't put up with arbitrary bullshit very well.
yes, like it was the Harry Potter, Pokemon, Golden Compass, Narnia, all being satanic. It's like the
Yeah.
leftovers of the satanic panic of the 80s and 90s, but it's like so relegated to just children's media because they're like,
Yeah.
oh god, we can't make fun of adults for playing D&D anymore because like they all do it and they're all high as hell.
Yeah. You mentioned D&D earlier. Were you playing as a kid?
Yeah, D&D has been a focal point of my life. Like it's like been like my dad played it with me back during like when my parents were like when they were young parents, they were really good. Like when I was like a kid and they were fine until they divorced and they became very very bad people that I could explain to you it would take a long time and it's very sad. It is like it's a difficult thing because like violence to me is very close. It always has been, so it's like very sometimes it's difficult for me to separate myself from the idea of it. You know what I mean? It's something I've worked on in therapy and I will continue to work on, and that's just how it is. I I'm pretty much a pacifist. I just have had bad things happen. You know what I mean? Like I channeled that into after that period I channeled it into like working out, lifting, being a good person to other people. I tried to be like that person you could call and I would just have a car jack. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, because of like that upbringing, I realized how important other people helping each other is. Um, and
Yeah.
also like the power and beauty of strength in my body. Violence is a two sides of a coin, really. There's the evils of it, but there is a great beauty to strength.
Yeah. So you ended up homeless. You're at 15.
Mm-hmm.
Were you like a street kid? Were you couch surfing? I know you've told me in the past about like there was a friend whose family you lived with for a while.
Yes, the Eddies. I played D&D with Michael Eddy. Michael Eddy is my brother. I call him my brother. We've lived half our lives as two people that have always been very, very close. We're very similar, and we're born only 4 days apart. We were in the same grade. We started playing D&D. And for like, and 2 years later, when I was on the street, his mom picked me up because she found out I was homeless. I was sleeping in a construction site in Belton,
Mm.
in like giant cement culverts.
For how long? Like how long were you
It was like
in
a
that?
week, maybe two. I don't
Damn.
remember. Um, like it's, homelessness gives you mental illness. Like I swear, like it's one of those things where it's like if you can never like if you ever get rained on, that's what like almost that's what broke me when I was homeless. It's like it wasn't that bad. Like sitting in a McDonald's and charging your phone, going to school still.
Yeah.
Um, doing all of that was kind of hard, but like I got rained on once, and when you can't get dry, it kills you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's I have again, I'm a child of privilege, so that's like very lucky. That's not a thing I've worried about. I have in the past had a partner who had been homeless for like a month years prior,
mhm.
and it was still so clearly like had just left such psychic scar tissue.
Oh
Like
yes.
it
Like
was,
I still get scared if I spend more than like $5 because like
yeah,
I grew up so poor and I grew up like without like my parents called me for help. Like my birth parents would like call me for help. I didn't really ever get to call them.
yeah,
And honestly, after around the age of like 18, 19, I didn't talk to my birth parents for like 6 years. Um, but my adoptive family, like they were always very kind. My
the
I call them my
Eddies.
parents directly. I call they are Michelle and Michael Eddy, which is
Hmm.
the same name as my brother. My brother is a junior. Very confusing situation. Also, they're named Michelle and Michael. Like you guys like just were like one letter off, good enough.
Yeah, it's
Like,
that's yeah.
um,
I mean, I'm glad you had them though to come in and play that role for you.
mhm.
So did you live with them for the rest of high school?
Yeah, I lived with them until I was like 19, and like I met my first wife at the time. I moved in with them. Like that was kind
At
of like,
19?
yeah, I like or was it 20? Things get kind of muddy for a while.
Okay.
I
I
was,
mean, I'll sorry,
mhm.
I won't stop you. Things
No,
get
it's
money for a
okay.
while.
Um, things get muddy for a while after, because like throughout high school, I was smoking a lot of weed. I was doing things I should not be doing. I was kind of in I was kind of in a dealing ring at some point,
Hmm.
um, to make money, but I barely made it out of high school. Like I got like a 1.7 GPA, Um, but the Eddies provided for me as much as they could. They would take me to places like I had to. My parents lost when they divorced. They lost like my social security card and my birth certificate,
Oh,
and I had to like go to court and have my dad DNA tested to prove that I was his, and like it was a whole thing to be able because like you need one to get the other.
yeah.
Um, so it was like a whole thing. I couldn't have a bank account or a job for a couple of years, so it was like a lot of waiting in the that like year and a half of my life during like the senior year of high school and then after.
Yeah.
Um,
So interesting. You'd become functionally like an undocumented
yes,
person.
I
Yeah.
actually did
Literally,
like
I guess.
partially why I dealt some drugs at some point was because of that. Like I had like a small thing going on in Belton. I knew suppliers and I knew people, so I did some coordination to make money. I also worked on a farm for like 2 years, like on kind of an undocumented
Yeah.
way, like with the and I'm going to be honest, that radicalized me, I think, the most succinctly in my life. You know what I mean?
Like classic, like kind of migrant farm labor work, like
Yes, like it was because like I was the crew leader because I could speak English, and like the rest of the people they didn't speak English. Like on my crew, we would go out. We basically all got on like a farm truck, went out into the fields, pruned that, collected it, or moved plants around. Like that was 18 and 19, and then almost to when I was 20. I quit like in July of that year. But it radicalized me a lot, and I learned a decent amount of Spanish from them because we would just point at stuff. Yeah. Like, I don't know very much Spanish. I can just point at like mud and be like, that's mud. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like, I know the word for like knife or trimmer or ladder. Sure. You know, because that's stuff I could point at and stuff they could ask me to go grab or like something like that. But they were like 70-year-old men. Like, a lot of these people were like between the ages of 40 and 70, and they were working insanely hard for nothing. At one point there was someone got injured on the farm, and it was pretty bad. Like, it was basically one of those roll-up garage doors that they put on the outside of greenhouses fell off and crushed a woman underneath it. And I remember like being angry. I remember like this is a moment that like really clinched it for me that I was going to have to work on, like I was going to have to work with people, or I was going to have to like do something about society.
Yeah.
She had to wait because she couldn't go to a hospital because she was working under a corporation that was hiring, like basically giving them a sponsorship. So she had to wait for the representative for them to come to take her to the hospital. And she had like a broken shoulder and clavicle.
Jesus.
So she was like broken from here over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was so angry because I was like, you have to take her to the hospital right now. But it was a whole thing.
Yeah, that is a whole thing. Damn, I had no idea. I had never heard this part of your backstory.
I don't know. And growing up in a poor area is,
even growing up in a poor area, like having the experience of like becoming undocumented and thus entering that labor world even for a couple of years, that's not standard.
It isn't. Is it? No, it isn't. Now that I think about it, a lot of my life is difficult to sometimes catalog because there's just so much stuff, like the events, the interesting times that I keep living through. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the thesis of this whole project is like, I think everyone is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But you, I will say in particular, are quite interesting. So I want to rewind and just cover that like middle school to high school period. So from specifically the perspective of like your understanding of gender, queerness, sexuality.
You know, oddly within the context of like Belton and Grandview, because like we're not on the coast, you know what I mean? We're landlocked, we're in Kansas City. We're like fairly small towns from where I was growing up. Like they aren't small, but like they're not like, you know, Weeblo, Missouri, where it's like 1,500 people live there. It was like tens of thousands, but it wasn't that many. I didn't know about like gay people. I didn't know about queerness. Like the only thing I knew is like from memes that were either making fun of gay people or especially trans women. Medea, Ace Ventura, you know, the 90s to 2000s time period where it was very, very funny for
pop culture memes, not like online internet memes.
Even then, yeah, like I had pretty unregulated. My dad was a computer person, so he had several computers, and I had my own from when I was like a kid. That I built onto for years because he would upgrade his computer, I would get it. My parents played World of Warcraft. That's actually like kind of what they did and what also split them up eventually.
Is it World of Warcraft based divorce?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not going to let myself get distracted by that. World of Warcraft is a very popular, massive multiplayer online role-playing game.
It'll still be on in 200 years.
Yeah, note for the future.
Hello Kitty Island Adventure expansion. But
74.
But I didn't know about gay people. Like I knew about people that were gay, and it didn't bother me. I got in trouble in Christian school because I would be like, when you were in Bible class, they would be like, well, gay people are pedophiles and blah, blah, blah. It was during
That's
the
what you were
Bush.
taught?
Yeah, it was during like the Bush, McCain, or Obama, like those years. So it was like common broadcasting that like Obama was a Muslim devil, um, and that George Bush was a righteous crusader of some kind. You know, it was kind of like that in Christian school. I kind of actually learned to defend myself physically because I basically said like gay people are like that's none of that is like backed up by data. That doesn't make any sense. Basically, like no, they're pedophiles are usually people that are straight, usually straight white men that have families they don't even molest. So like they're odd creatures. They're not gay though. Like I was also like the Bible doesn't say anything to do with that, and then I got in trouble. I got jumped by kids after that.
How old were you in that?
I was like 12, 13 then.
Okay. Is this before or after your nonverbal or during?
It was, I faced a lot of bullying between those times. It's weird because like I'm sometimes very outspoken, but I also get like whenever I get backlash, I got terrified. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting jumped by kids and you're, I mean that's like they're putting you as a kid there, just trying to like be the voice of reason in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Like you automatically get framed as a person defending pedophiles because of how they have like framed the propaganda.
That was the point of it. That's always been the point of it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I mean, that's like brave of you to, even as a kid, like speak out.
It was very odd because like my grandmother hung out with like older black women because she was Hawaiian, and we had solidarity between people of color in that time sometimes. Like I'm not saying she was perfect. She still has horrible like she's called me the T slur a lot. I don't hang out with her very often. She's kind of whack, but like at the same time it's like she exposed me to a lot of culture, so I've never understood all of those lines between people very well, like why they are important. Or like, I was always very questioning of all of that because I was like, I'm not really a boy or a girl, and I don't really care what I'm attracted to, and I'm in this weird ambiguous racial group, and I'm also not fitting in with like other quote unquote boys. So I'm between these, like I'm in this like unique in between space all the time that I kind of internalize in my own way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you remember how old you were when you would have started consciously thinking in that kind of way? Or is that just kind of always been the sense you had?
It was, I mean, like, I can't remember before like the age of 10 or like 11. Like, I can't remember cognizantly what I was back then.
Just like when you remember, like
I think it was when I was like 12 or 13 because I just got tired of it. Because like growing up throughout the 1990s, like you just kind of are inundated. Well, at least in the religious Midwest, you're kind of just inundated with these ideas of like good and evil, unclean, in group, out group, like stuff. No matter what you're doing on every vector, you know what I mean? Like if you're non-Christian, that's one. If you're non-white, that's one. If you're non-straight, that's another. You know what I mean? And they were rigidly kind of enforced throughout the early 2000s.
It's a very dual kind of worldview. And when you say you didn't know what gay people were, like, but you also, you were getting bullied for being effeminate. I mean, were people calling you faggot? Like,
yeah, they were calling me gay, or like they were calling me a fag, and I just like, you have that like, that kind of response to it because like you're taught that that's a bad thing. You don't know what it actually entails or what it's inferring, other than that you are not masculine enough. Like as a boy child, you kind of just go like, no, like I'm cool. I'm archetypically Hercules. That's what I've been taught to do. You know.
So that for you that wasn't resonant. Like did you ever have like internal fears of like, oh no, am I a faggot? Am I gay? Like did you feel that way, or were you kind of
I've always been like very solid about myself. I've never been afraid of what's inside me. I've always been afraid externally. You know what I mean? It's something that I've realized through like a lot of therapy is like, if I'm not afraid of what's in me at all, like, if it's in there, it's like cool. But externally, like I was worried whether people would think I was weird for being that way. Or the weird kind of fetishization that comes about, and I think this is a trans femme thing too, of like when you're a teenager, especially like because of Twilight, girls in my teenage years really liked me because I looked like one of the boys from Twilight who is Native American.
Yeah, you've got Jacob energy.
Yeah, I have that. Like I dog boy, like
Yeah.
But like that whole thing was weird to navigate too. But I don't know. I think I worried about being gay and I kind of accepted it by the age of like 16, 17 that I was probably bisexual, but I didn't really have an interest in sex or like an interest in sexuality in that way. I don't know how to put it.
Did you date?
I did, but it was like because of like the abusive household stuff, it was kind of like I was looking for a very close friend, and hopefully their parents were also nice so I could have like some semblance of like parental care.
Yeah.
And I did actually date a girl for 3 years. She's married to one of my high school best friends too now, and they have like 2 kids. It's so cute. I love them. But like her and her family were very, very poor. And they would provide for me what they could as well while I dated their daughter, and it was very, very kind.
And you weren't interested in sex at the time. Is that still true? Like, do you consider yourself asexual or kind of in that arena?
It's very odd. Like, let's see. I was basically a stone top until I was like 27, 28 because I couldn't conceive of sex without just utility. You know what I mean? It wasn't very pleasurable for me because the way I could access it, and especially because, again, a common trans femme experience, you're very shamed for wanting anything besides the normal, like topping. So I kind of just did that. I didn't like people touching me. It took me years to figure out why. And I didn't really figure it all out. Like I didn't understand that people could desire me for like as an object of desire, rather than like as a tool of utility until I was like 28.
So some future glossing here, and also because I know there's some cis straight people who watch this. Define stone top for us.
A stone top is someone that generally does not receive pleasure back and is basically there for pillow princesses or people that want to be touched and not give, to like to provide for them. It's in a way, it's a very butch mindset. It's a very like, it's a way of providing sex that you're doing as like a job almost. I don't know how to put it. Like the pleasure of pleasuring someone is all you really want out of it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I was because I just didn't. I don't know.
Were you like, when you were a teenager, were you, just because this is a thing that's come up in my last 2 interviews, were you someone who like watched porn or was in like kind of the sex corners of the internet?
You know, I've always been an erotica person because like I was raised by fat women. So like porn was always really weird for me because I was like, women don't look like that. Like I've never seen a model of a woman that looks like that. That looks like a very young woman that I would not be attracted to. So it was like a lot of amateur stuff like that people would post, or eroticas, because eroticas could do whatever they want and it's easier to imagine.
And did you find yourself drawn to trans porn at all?
No, not really. It's weirdly like I wasn't into sex very much at all until transition. Like transition was like an entire like psycho landscape reformation for me. Like literally it was like an earthquake happened and every continent was shifted around the globe. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's such evocative imagery that I want to touch on it. I want to get there. How old were you when you started transitioning? When this earthquake happened?
I was nearly 26. So I was like a couple months off of 26. It was July 1st, I think, of 2020. So like I'd been ruminating and stewing in the quarantine zone.
The trandemic.
The trandemic, you see. Yeah. And I'd been for years before that, I was trying to find a way to be beautiful. I didn't understand what that meant. My brain was constantly going like, I don't like my body very much and I don't know why. Like, will getting jacked help? And then I got like disgustingly like squatting 600 pounds jacked.
Were you like a like bodybuilder forum kind of person?
Yeah, I was like a power lifter. I've always been like a primitivist in the way of a lot of stuff where I was like, you eat big, you get big. You eat big, you lift big, and that's it.
You
like,
eat big, lift big, get big.
Yeah, it's that easy. And people were like, you have to take your supplements like right now within this anabolic window. And I'd be like, I just eat Chipotle burrito and then I go work out for 2 hours and then I have another Chipotle burrito.
Yeah.
Like, or something like that.
And so you've been trying to get beautiful. Okay. I'm piecing together the timeline here for myself and for our listeners and for the future.
I know. I kind of ramble and I'm glad that I have you here.
It's okay. I mean, that's my job here. It's like and I also like I want to go with you on these points, and I am having to force myself also to like be a little bit more disciplined here. So like by the time you left high school and you started working as a farm worker, like at this point, do you know trans people exist? Like what's your awareness of anything?
Trans people, like the only cultural zeitgeist that I got from it was like seeing trans porn, but like I wasn't watching it. It was seeing it and it was like kind of oddly grotesque, a lot of it, because it was like very like kind of horrible plastic surgery. They're all like 90 pounds and they don't look like very healthy or happy. You know what I mean? Like no, they don't look like they're taking hormones or anything. It's just like a sheer fetish object. So like at the time I was like, that's terrible that they are doing that to those people, but I didn't understand that's something you could be. You know what I mean? I thought you were just like...
That's exactly like trans porn. The reason I brought it up is because that was my experience as well as a teenager. And like that was my exposure to it. And I had the exact same understanding of like, these people exist in some way, but that's not a thing that I could ever be. Like,
yes.
And it's not a choice one makes.
It's something that I fight to this day because like I fight medical providers about this, or I just like people don't. I fight this understanding because like I've had 2 doctors insist. Like I would be like, they would say, "Have you had any surgeries?" I would say, "Well, I've had my wisdom teeth out, but that's the only thing I've done." Like, and they're like, "Not even breast augmentation?" And they would look at me like, you know what I mean? And I'd be like, "No, this is just normal." And they go, "Oh, that's all you then? How does that happen?" And I'm like, "You are giving me medication."
You take estrogen, my dude.
You are giving my friend. You are giving me the hormone.
Yeah, people, cis people do not understand that. It's the most widespread misconception about trans women, I would say, is that like we have to have breast augmentation in order to have breasts. We don't. Estrogen, you grow them.
Yes, like especially with the newfound medical science. Again, it's something that I'm immersed in and constantly talking to people about. Where I'm like, we trans our sex, and it's not very hard to do. It's sex is extremely mutable, and none of it means anything when you get down to it. Like I deal with people that are like they're cisgender, but they would like to experience effects. Like they're a cisgender transsexual, basically. Or sometimes I've met people that are like cissexual, for lack of a better term, like they are solidly a man or a woman, but they take HRT for like having breasts or something to affirm something that isn't even their gender. It's just something they like. And I've worked with them and been like, oh, if these are your goals, you should do this kind of regimen.
Okay. That's all right. We're gonna get to all this, Kalani. I just really quickly, we keep getting distracted.
I know.
Here.
I apologize.
No, there's nothing to apologize for. Okay, you get married around 19 or 20.
Yeah, I meet a woman on Tinder. She's in kind of a weird like situation. She was like 19 dating an older man. Her parents found out, they locked all of that down. I then like 6 months later talked to her. We move in together in like 4 months, which wildly lesbian activity to do. And we kind of just move into a 1-bedroom, 400 square foot, $500 a month Kansas City apartment, right? And we struggle. Like I walk to work, you know, like
that was your first time moving into Kansas City.
Yes, that was my first time living on like 85th and Holmes, and I've lived within probably 4 blocks of that area for like 7, 8 years now. So like I've been in this kind of part of the city for a while.
And how long were you with her?
I was like actually they go by they now, I
Oh,
think.
how long were you with them?
I don't know what gender identity. They took a new name, so that's cool. Um
How
I
long
was
were you with your ex?
my ex-spouse. It was 6 years total. We were married for like 5 of that.
Okay. And were you still together when you started transitioning?
Yes, for the first like almost a year in, I was with them, but I moved out due to circumstances within that relationship, and we got divorced. It wasn't because I was trans; it was because they cheated on me, which was wild to do for me. Um, and actually, recently they emailed me like 4 years later, after all these events, they emailed me and they were like, "I'm sorry, you were right about everything," and it felt really weird. That happened like a week ago. Interesting stuff. But I was with them for 6 years, and that 6 years is kind of a blur where I was trying to fit into masculinity, and I was trying like makeup over these years,
Hmm.
and I was trying like feminine clothing, but I didn't. I just hated the way I looked at it. Um, and I
Was
would
your
try. Yeah.
was your spouse, were you open about that with your spouse, or was this something
Yes.
you were doing privately?
No, I was open about it, and they were fine with that. They were very affirming to my trans identity, which is very
Hmm.
kind. But they were a hairdresser, and they were
Hmm.
obviously around gay people all the time because
Yeah.
when you go to hairdressing school, it's like 80% gay. It's just how it is. Um,
What was your self-understanding of like why you were doing that?
I was like, oh, like maybe I can access like the same beautiful energy that like Howl from Howl's Moving Castle, which is a cartoon movie about a beautiful man. Um,
So you kind of wanted to be, you were like, maybe I can be a femboy.
like not even that. Like I wanted to be like a classical, like you know, like a classical like daring do devil. You know that kind of like
Oh,
that kind
okay.
of dashing swashbuckler that has the beautiful hair. You know that
Okay.
kind of like
Yeah. Big
my
pirate energy.
my conceptualization is always because of like my size. I can't conceive of myself as like a small feminine object at times. It's difficult. So I've always conceptualized myself as like a bold, large presence, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah. So okay, so you'd occasionally try makeup and kind
Hmm.
of women's clothing, feminine clothing.
Yeah, I
And
tried drag, but it wasn't for me because like I just did not fit in with the cis gay men. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
I do. Were you like part of a queer community at all?
I was friends with a lot of gay people, and I was obviously completely fine with it. Like it did not bother me at all. A lot of them found me attractive and would say that, and I'd be like, "Oh, okay, cool." And it did. I was very oddly like just I was very secure in my masculinity or whatever that was at the time. Um,
Yeah.
but like a lot of before transition is like a blur. I had queer community, but they like I didn't know very many trans people. I only knew like one trans femme individual that wasn't on HRT and was kind of generally miserable, and that was the only like exposure I had. And I met them like 3 times. They go by they them now. I actually reconnected with them years later and was like, hey, you don't remember me, but like you were an influence on me in this way. And it was kind of interesting to talk to.
And like so in that time period, was there a trackable evolution in how you understood yourself or like how you understood gender or transness that led to ultimately July of 2020 being a moment when you could like make that decision, or was it kind of a punctuated
It was,
equilibrium?
yeah, it was kind of a snap. Like it was like I was doing all this stuff and like I'd had a lot of grief around this period because like between like the age of like 20 and 25, like my great aunt passed. She was very important. My adoptive grandmother passed. She was a very kind woman. My adoptive great aunt Carrie was living with us for a period of time, like living with the Eddies for a period of time, and I would go visit. She was on hospice, so
Mm,
her and her mother both had breast cancer at the same time and died around the same period. And then my mother died.
mm,
So it was like a lot of just like it was like one of the reasons that time period is a blur is just because there was so much pain there.
Yeah. Which mother was this?
I was my adoptive mother. It was, she just, it's hard to describe. She was on a lot of anxiety medication and antidepressants to deal with mental illness, and her doctors thought she was abusing them, so they cut her off cold turkey.
Oh.
This led to alcoholism and abusing other drugs, and then she eventually just didn't wake up one day. And it's hard, and we tried to get her clean for years, but it was hard. She just couldn't get. Again, I've had a lot of specifically women in my life die because of like medical mismanagement or racism, or like the way that society is structured toward mental health being very bad. So like that's why I do some of the work I do, as well as like I'm sure that some of these people could have lived longer if they'd been managed well.
Yeah. Was she what race are the Eddies?
The Eddies are like Norwegian, basically. Like they're like one side of them is named the Voorhees, and like Jason Voorhees, and they're like a typical like Southern Baptist pastor family. The children are pretty accepting of me. Their grandmother does not like me, but it doesn't bother me. I like she had like religion actually beaten into her. You know what I mean? Like really. Sure. So I don't exactly blame her for what she does. Yeah. But the Eddies were a very white family.
Yeah. So I'm sorry for your many losses in that period.
Yeah, it happened.
I mean, that's hard. And then, like with so many people, including the first two interviews I did, this was not intentional, but the first two interviews I did were also people who came out in 2020, or during the pandemic. Yeah. And so what was that snap? What changed?
I always have to say, like, I felt a lot of kinship with all of those women that died. Like, I felt a lot of kinship by, like, when I was being raised by them. And I had always looked up to women in this way where I was like, damn, I love women. I hope I can be one day. You know what I mean? Like, when I grow up, I want to be a cool, powerful woman. And honestly, I wasn't on social media for years because I was like, it's a waste of time. I don't like taking pictures of myself, and I don't like people very much. And I, you know what I mean? So I was off of social media. During COVID, I kind of had to get on it because it was the only way to stay sane and talk to other people. And on May 31st, Transgender Day of Visibility, don't know if that's in the future. I hope it is. It better fucking be.
Unless it's just that everyone's
I'm going to time travel. Yeah, I'm going to time travel. I'm going to get you. But like I was on Twitter, like looking at fighting games stuff because I was like, you know, when you're trapped inside, you can still play fighting games with people or like Magic the Gathering. And so I was following these people because I was like, I wonder what's up in the scene during COVID. I wonder like if I can connect to these people and like have a community out like when I eventually get like through all of this stuff. And I saw people posting about Trans Day of Visibility, and I was like, I saw specifically there's a trans woman that is adjacent to me now because of like, I know a friend, like she's a friend of a friend now. Like I have a close friend that she's friends with. Very weird sometimes, very surreal. But I saw her like the before and after, and I was like, wait, you can just be a hot, muscular woman? And I went to the comments, on my fucking plain ass profile, and I was like, how do I do that? Hey, what is this? What's this about, and how do I do that? And people were really nice to me, and they were like,
what platform is this?
This was on Twitter.
Oh wow, okay.
Back in the golden age of Twitter, before the inshitification of all of reality. But I asked on Twitter, and I was like, how do I, like, directly under that post? I didn't know anything about posters, like etiquette or anything, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
And I just asked, like, what is this and how do I do it? Like, I'm not judging. I just don't understand, and I need to understand. And people were like, I think people smelled it on me. They were like, egg, and they grabbed me, and
they nurtured you,
and they grabbed me, and they were like, they told me, no, but like they messaged me, or like people messaged me, and they were like, oh, it's called estrogen. You can start it this way. Like this is what an informed consent clinic is. This is what it will do to you. Look at this on Reddit or something, like to get more information about this. And they were really nice to me, and I said, okay, thanks. I like saved all of that and deleted my account. Like I instantly was like,
why?
Because I got scared because it was just like
that like people would know you were trans or that you'd been interested?
It's it was also just it was just scary. It was just like a terrifying moment of because it instantly in my brain I knew that that was the correct option. Like I
Yeah.
had no I started HRT like not like exactly 1 month later. Like I literally made the appointment like 2 days after that because I looked at trans experiences and I was like, oh, I feel this horrible detachment from masculinity in my body. Like my body exists as like a robot that I live within that can lift like I have to
It's a,
stress when I was a power lifter, I was like my body is a utility tool. Like I can
yeah.
lift big thing. I'm made to do that and I like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you had a very effective mech suit that
But
you were piloting.
yeah, and and before transition, I dissociated like most of the time. Like I didn't realize that you weren't supposed to be in third person. So my brain was kind of literally in a mech suit. Like I could see I could see myself looking through my own eyelids, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like my perception of self was always like right here in the back of my head instead of like in me. I don't know how to put it.
Yeah, no, I spent a lot of my late teens and early 20s and kind of
Hmm.
perpetual feelings of like derealization and like
Yes.
a lot of kind of depersonalized anxiety
That's
like
kind of
that.
where I was, yeah. But I knew
Yeah.
it was correct. Like, and the more I read about it, the more I knew it was correct. And I told my spouse, I was like, I showed them some trans memes because I was trying to figure out how to talk to them about it,
Yeah.
like off rip, because I was like, hey, I know that like I haven't ever talked about this or known about this, and you don't know or talk about it. Like you're vaguely aware of the idea of it. Uh, and they looked at me and they were like, "Do you want to do that?" And I was like, "Yes." Like I was like, I don't know how to answer that because I didn't know how to like vocalize that need. But I
Yeah.
was like, I think I would like to try it. So I made an appointment. I went in, I did all the research on like min-maxing. I was like, I want injections, no anti-androgen. I want this dose. I know that this will be effective and this is what I want for my goals in transition. Like I went there and I was like, I told the doctor what I wanted and the doctor was like, are you sure about that? Because usually we start on this other thing, which is million milligram Spiro,
Yeah.
4 milligram E if you're lucky. And I was like, nope, don't want that. I want this. And they listened to me because I was like, I will send you studies. I will do my own advocacy. And they basically were like, okay, well, good luck. And I like after the first injection, like I did it at like 8 p.m. and I was really afraid because I also had a terrifying needle phobia. Like
That's
I was,
why I don't do injections. That's why I
I
don't even have a needle phobia. I just can't give myself injections.
okay, giving yourself injections is like a whole other beast because I've tried a few times and I can't do it. I've had other
I
people
have
do
panic
it.
attacks. Yeah.
I know. I have other people do it and even then it took me like 30 minutes to like sit there and calm down for them to give me it.
Yeah.
Do your injections if someone else is giving you injections, do them in the butt. It's really good. It's easy. That's for all the girlies out there.
And for the future.
Trans boys too if you want.
Yeah.
Use vibration on the area. That's like a whole. It deadens all the nerves. If you're gonna watch this, please take that one away. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And here's what I'll say, anecdotally, just from my personal
Mhm.
experience, the tablets work too.
The tablets do work. Uh, but I've been on injections for almost 5 years. In under a month, it'll be 5 years.
Nice.
And like best decision I ever made. Obviously, like my hips expanded by a fuck ton. Like I have a fairly normal natural breast formation. They don't look that big because I'm just kind of big. For the longest time, I didn't get great effects until 2 years in, and because I had big pecs. And by the way, I loved having big pecs for some reason pre-transition.
Yes.
Pre-transition, I don't know, they were just massive, and I loved having them. That's weird.
Yeah. On that topic, like, do you remember having other kinds of like body dysphoria
Oh yeah,
pre-transition?
like I actually had like poofy sensitive nipple before transition. Like I didn't realize I didn't know why boys had no nipple. Like you know when white boys generally have like nipples that are like this big for some reason, and then like other races usually have larger nipple or different nipple formation, which I like as a Hawaiian person it was just funny because I had pretty puffy nipple before, and I was very proud of that. Like I was engaging like that was like
But just nipple, not like not gynecomastia, just the
No,
nips.
just the nip, and they were like kind of sensitive. So like I actually did like that was a way of accessing sex for me that felt good,
Mm.
but I couldn't obviously like do that to completion or anything. So it was like I had a lot of dysphoria about that specifically. And I also had dysphoria of like, dang, I wish my hips were bigger, or like, dang, I wish my hands looked. When I started getting body hair, like when I got body hair as a teenager, I shaved until I was pretty much like 17. Like I shaved my whole body
Mm.
because I just did not like having body hair, no matter where it was. I gave up because I have thick black islander hair, and it took me hours to shave and many razors. And I also have that thing that you can have multiple hairs per follicle. So like below the waist before transition, I was like a satyr. Like I like you couldn't see anything. I had like furry pants on. Um,
Yeah, that's funny.
I had to. It was a war of attrition, and I lost. I was Napoleon, I think. I don't know history.
I was a swimmer in high school, and it was always a tradition.
It's a tradition, yeah.
Going into the big final meet of the season, the girls'
Mm-hmm.
team would shave the legs of the boys' team, and I was always like, oh no,
Oh no, I hate it. It's like oh god, I did theater and I wasn't very good at acting because I didn't understand like how to and I didn't understand what I looked like when I was emoting because of the dissociation. Like I didn't understand like what I looked like or how I was supposed to convey things in the right way.
yeah,
I was also very flat before transition. Like I didn't feel very much. I was very calm. I was like very autistic in that way where it was like I just didn't react to things in the correct way because I was so detached from myself. But I would wear dresses in theater, or they would keep me as like a model for things to like they would measure me because I had a weirdly hourglass figure before transition, and I was large, so they'd be like, okay, you can like stand in for this person or this girl, and we're gonna take your measurements and alter it. My high school girlfriend was also like the main seamstress for like the theater at the time. But I would wear dresses, and I'd be like, "Oh no, I hate this," and
oh no,
oh no.
I'm in an interview.
Hi, how are you feeling?
Yeah, that's that's fun. I like that. I like those little moments of like when when you're force femmed by society.
Yeah,
it's-
God, that's funny.
Okay, so you're. God, we have so much cool stuff still to get to. This is gonna be a long one. Sorry,
No,
the
it's
future.
okay. Yeah, I was like,
Um,
sorry, future Sarah.
Oh, I don't care about future Sarah.
Oh, that's bad to say.
I'm talking about the future. Future Sarah's happy to have it. Okay. Where would you like to go now? Because I feel like we've hit the primary things leading up to you're a tran now.
Yeah, I think. Do you want me to talk about like early transition during COVID and as like a larger individual, like
Yeah,
leading to the
you-
Discord server, and then to now?
Yeah, and if that's you'd also mentioned in our little pre-recording thing, you had thoughts on body image you wanted to bring up. So I don't know if that was what you meant by being a larger person.
Yes.
Or
Like I think that like trans femme culture, especially like white trans femme culture, especially younger, they skew towards being like fair, like a decent chunk of the trans femme community has eating disorders,
yeah,
of one kind or another because of the horrible restraining, like restrictive expectations put up on us by society, because it's kind of like it's being a woman but make it like 3 times harder, actually, LMAO,
yeah,
for no
and, like,
reason.
the shortcut to being what is like currently in our culture considered a hot trans woman is to be 24 and like 100 pounds.
It's something because like I talk to cis people at work all the time. Like I cornered this one guy. His name, I'm kidding. I didn't corner him. I worked on night shift. He was the only other person that worked with me in the job. So I like I would talk about trans stuff with him because I do this to everyone I can corner, like every cis guy I can corner.
Yeah.
I go, trans people are normal and cool, and also we're hot. So like, stop being weird. Don't be weird about us. But he, like, this kind of leads in. He, like, after weeks of us talking like this, he asked me, like, what do you think of Dylan Mulvaney? He was like, because I knew it, and I knew what he was going to say, and I interrupted him, and I'm like, and you're going to say she's performing femininity too hard, and she doesn't have a right to it because she's ugly. And he was like, well, and I was like, yes, but like when I'm too masculine and I'm a butch trans woman, you don't like that either. So it's like, what do you want from us? And it like clicked in his brain, and I showed him like Laverne Cox and Hunter Shaver, and I was like, do you see why these people are more accepted? It's because they are generally thin, generally very attractive, and in positions of power. Whereas Dylan Mulvaney is a young woman 6 months into transition that everyone hates. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it got through to them though, and it's like there are a lot of these lines that there are a lot of these lines that are difficult to overcome because you cannot control or even really alter people's perception of you. Like you can do that on purpose, but the fact is that it doesn't alter the way that you're going to be dealt with very easily. I've always had I went into transition with a couple things, which is it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. You're gonna be doing this forever, and it's gonna take forever. Like you have to unfortunately be very patient. I didn't get very much breast tissue formation until like 2.5 years in. I didn't get like fairly noticeable breasts until 4 years in, and that is like unfortunate. But it's just part of the process. It's okay.
Yeah, everyone's bodies are different.
Mm-hmm.
Like you look at it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that that's how it works, because that's obviously how it works. And unless in your experience, teenagers going through their first or their cis puberties all turned out exactly the same on the same timelines. Yeah,
like it's very like because it is hard. It's hard to wait. It's hard to have waited all of your life to find an answer and then have to wait longer. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But the second thing I approach transition with is like, I will not shrink down to be digestible for you. Like I'm not going to like clean up myself or my presentation or like what I am for your expectations because I don't care about what you think. Like I don't like that doesn't mean I don't value being accepted by others. It means that like if you cannot accept me, I will burn my visage into you. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like I will scorch you with my beauty and my proximity towards you with kindness because I'm not going to be mean to you. I'm just going to be like I'm this way on purpose. If you want to make fun of me, good luck. I've literally done everything on purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I am whole cloth what I want to be, and therefore you can't make fun of me because it's like, no, that's on purpose.
Yeah, that's amazing. Good shit. Okay, so have you been able to attain the feeling? I'm tying back to a thing you mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
That idea of like being able to feel like an object of desire.
Oh, yes. I have learned to access it, and like progesterone and estrogen helped me with unlocking that idea of myself. It was also like I just have a lot of sexual trauma spread throughout my life, so being touched at all was very hard for me for a long time. And in my recent years, like in the last 4 years, I've like started to ask for hugs, or like I insist that people give me hugs like before people leave or part, and I always like I try to be emotionally vulnerable in that moment with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's because it's like an exercise in being able to be touched, or being able to touch someone and it being like not sexual, not violent, nothing like we're not doing this out of any like horrible necessitation. It is just because like it feels nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because human touch is vitally important.
Mm-hmm.
to
Well,
us.
and like because of all the grief, like in my friend group during like all of those passings, I also we had a person in the D&D group commit suicide, And we all committed. After that, we were like, we could have been nicer to that guy. Like, we could have figured that guy out better. Like, he only hung around us for like a year and a half before passing. But like, it was funny. Like, we were 4 men at the time. We were the 4 like left after that. And we looked at each other. We were like, we got to stop teasing each other, and we got to start being like a lot nicer and more open to each other. And I kind of carried that throughout my life too, is like, you have to like learn, you have to like make time to learn to love someone. Like, and it doesn't have to be someone that you're close to. It just is that everyone is worthy and interesting and beautiful in that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Would you, in your history of playing D&D since you were a kid, would you play girl characters?
You know, I would play genderless characters a lot. I did not play very many women. I would play like very caring paladin men, or I would play like years before. So I was in a campaign for like a couple of years, and then a couple of years after transition. But a couple of years before transition, while I was trying to figure out like why can't I be beautiful? I don't understand what's wrong with my, like, why I have this dysmorphia/dysphoria. I played a basically it was a bug that was a hive queen. Like, she was psionic, and she used any pronouns, and she because to fit into society in that realm, she would wear people that she liked their visage. So like, a lot of the time she wore basically her like surrogate mother's visage, which was an old elven woman that like saved her from a long line of genocide against insect people, basically. And she was like, oddly, her backstory was that she was like a male drone that because of the massive casualties her race, like, she was one of the only of her tribe left. She became a woman, like, she became a hive queen. And tried, like, her entire goal was to propagate her race and like try to figure out how to like fight against. This was also an evil campaign, so it was like paladins had gone on a crusader mode and started just slaughtering like bad races. So she was trying to figure out how to propagate and understand, like, become a mother in a way that she couldn't be because she did not have the parts.
How old were you when you were playing this campaign?
Like 24.
Oh, yeah. Good timing.
Good timing.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm just looking at the notes I've taken for things to get into. The last one that's like kind of a distraction I put off is cisgender transsexual. Yeah, and that ties into other broader work you do. So I'll let you just to discuss.
I have met multiple cis lesbians that are like, no, I am a woman, but I kind of want a T-dick. And they have that like need, and it gives them dysphoria, and they want it for like their own affirmation. And I've helped provide them resources on how to do that without getting a beard, or like they control. And a lot of them honestly started to like having a beard or body hair, and they just fully came out as trans men. Because sometimes sometimes that happens. The amount of femboys I've met and gotten on HRT, and then they become trans women, like, immediately. I'm like, okay. But I have met like cis gay men. I've met 2 cis gay men, one of which takes E because they like the mental effects and they like having like sensitive breasts. And then I met another cis gay man he's not actually, I think he's just, I don't know if he's bi or gay. He is a cis man that is a bottom, and he doesn't really care how that works for him. But he asked me like about progesterone and like how to use that for affirmation in that way. And I provided him resources on how to do that, and like what you would do, and like how that would work without getting long lasting effects. I've met multiple people like that.
Can you give me more information on why that would be relevant to him?
Progesterone makes some of your erogenous zones much more sensitive, and it can increase libido and or cause you to have a different style of libido. Hormones kind of, T horny versus E horny is kind of like wild to describe. It's a case by case basis for each individual, but in general, it's different for a lot of people, and some people want one or the other. He wanted to be more sensitive because he is a bottom. In that way, to see if it would affect him in that way. And so I haven't heard anything back from him, but maybe that will happen.
And not asking you to speak for these people, because they're their own people. But what is your understanding, to the extent that you have one, of like
hmm
what it means to be man or woman, to be able to say like this is there's something that feels like inherently oxymoronic to me of like this is a cis person doing
hmm
HRT, because like that, or maybe what it does is it like
hmm
calls for the kind of transsexual transgender dichotomy to come into play,
I
like
yeah.
transsexual but cisgender.
Yeah, like I honestly I think that labels are stupid and divisive for like a lot of reasons. Like I think that
I
labels are
agree.
like the parable of the boat in Buddhism is like three students go and they ask their master like when along the path of enlightenment do you abandon Buddhism, because like you have an attachment left which is your framework of Buddhism. How do you reach nirvana while abandoning the very tool that supposedly has gotten you along this path? uh, the master went away for a few days to meditate and think about this and came back and he said, when you cross a river, do you carry the boat with you on your back? And all of the students said no. And that's kind of how labels are, where they are meant to get you somewhere, and like after that, who cares? It's all everyone is so singular and individual in their understanding of the word lesbian or trans or transsexual or transgender or like all of my attractions to anyone of any gender is very complex and gay. It doesn't really matter why.
Mhm.
Like I'm always a woman, but at the same time sometimes I'm a very effeminate man. And that's okay too. And it's like I think there's a misconception that a lot of people have that like non-binary people do not take HRT, which is like something I've heard repeated throughout our culture a lot, which is very silly because
It's very silly.
most of the non-binary people I know are on HRT in some fashion, and I'm on prog and T-gel to balance and get effects for what I want. Um, like having body hair. I've used T-gel to grow a little bit of belly hair because I think it's cute, and that's literally like I've used it, it works, and that's what I've used it for.
Hmm.
My understanding of all of this is like us as individuals. I always take a like there is no like large zeitgeist movement except for like you can measure individuals, but everyone's going to individually have their own ideas. Like we have a lot of young lesbians that are like butches that use he him are bad lesbians, or like furries are bad gay people. And it's like no, we're all just doing whatever we want and that's okay. You
Yeah.
know? HRT is the same way where it's like I view it as biohacking in its like simplest form. I did powerlifting. I ate a billion proteins. I ate a lot of carbs. I lifted. I got bigger, and then I could lift more. Uh, it's very cyberpunk in that way. Very like individual control, like absolute control of the body. Like
Yeah.
um, E and T are just things that are levels that everyone has that you can balance which way or the other to get an effect that you would like. And you can stop it at any time if you want the effects. Like I've known multiple people that take E or T and then they stop. They're like, "Yeah, I got my thing. I got top surgery or I got like bottom surgery, and I just stop and I just live my life after that." And they're not like they don't even
Yeah.
consider themselves detransitioned. Usually, they usually still consider themselves transitioned, which is that whatever it means to you, that's what it means to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so, in the interest of measuring you as an individual, which is kind of what my project is here,
Mm-hmm.
in understanding that you're not speaking for
Mm-hmm.
anyone else, you're not posing general definitions here. Like,
Okay.
what does it mean? What are you communicating when you say like I'm always a woman? Like to your understanding, and you don't have to have a concrete one. Like all my cards on the table, like uh, for me,
Mm-hmm.
it's like an empirical answer I've come to, where I've tested out a lot of different identities, and that's just the one that's most fun and feels most comfortable to me. I don't have like I definitely don't have a definition that I could posit or prove for anything. It's
Yes. Sorry, are
but
you chopping up?
not on my end.
Oh,
But
am I looking bad? Let's see. Do I look
no,
I
you
look
look
okay?
great. You look great.
Okay. It must be my Wi-Fi is downloading funny then, because you're all pixelated, but that's okay.
Okay.
I'm so used to prefacing like as somebody that usually is like a community person or like a person that people like look to for this advice. I'm so used to positing like the general definition with 1,000 caveats because
For
people
sure.
would be like, what do you mean about this? And it's like, dude, it's just some words. To me, like I'm more of like the concept of self that I have and the concept of transness and like is the idea of transcendence entirely. Like I am more human than human. I am a dog and a god at the same time. I am whatever I am precisely and only the way that I can be. I am between masculine and feminine and male and female. And I get to define myself, and that's all that matters. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. And
if
to ask questions on behalf of future queer
Mhm.
scholars, when you say that I get to define myself,
Mhm.
and like to your conception, to your self experience, does it feel that much like a free choice, or does it feel like you're defining yourself in line with something that feels kind of like natural or unchangeable that you discover about yourself? Like,
that's a hard one. Now that's a
yeah,
really hard one. I think very rigidly I am something that is like sort of an animal and also sort of a woman. And that's very solid and true, like in an essential way, true to me. But I also like being very strong and I like being like handy, you know? Like I like that
totally.
I have people that call me and they're like, I have a flat on the highway, what do I do? And I'm like, okay, you should have a spare tire and blah, blah, blah. And I love that people do that. That it makes me feel like a mother, but it also makes me feel like a father. Uh, I often say in relation to my older brother that we are brothers still. Like that I could never be anything else to him. I might be, he calls me his sister, but like in my brain, we are brothers because I love brotherhood in that way. But
Yeah.
we
I
also
get it.
have we have a sister that is 14 and we are 30, and I'm her big sister because she's basically for most of her sentient non-baby pudding brain life, she she's known me as a woman and she's always been very nice about it. She was
Yeah.
excited when I came out. She's such a little sweet thing. Um,
That makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, i- insofar as break brotherhood and sisterhood
mhm.
are these cultural experiences,
Yes.
like I have two brothers and they both refer to me as their sister, and that's probably
hmm
what I prefer. But I would definitely say our relationship is much more fraternal because of how like
Yes.
we grew up together.
hmm And
Um,
it's a building a pathway, you know, like it's building this beautiful pathway, an inroad to each other's minds and hearts that can be reconfigured throughout transition, but doesn't necessarily need to be gotten rid of, you know?
yeah.
Like, yeah.
So, but you do seem to believe like there is some way in which you are naturally, you said, an animal in some way, a woman in some way. Like it sounds like you do experience a sort of nat natural awareness that
hmm
like woman, whatever that label means, is more appropriate. And then maybe
Yes.
the like transcending and the definition is like how you get to
hmm
live and experience that womanness.
I I my one of my hot takes, and prepare, this is scorching, get your peppers out.
I'm ready. Yeah.
Trans people in general, I think most trans people are non-binary for the simple fact that like we've transcended and understood from both sides. Like there are definitely people that would say I've always been this way. I've always been this way, and they'll insist upon an essential nature of the thing. You know,
hmm
Slavoj Žižek voice, but
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
essential nature of the thing. But like I think that like because we've changed ourselves and because we have like seen the lines between society and between groups in that way, that like knowing exactly what a binary is difficult for trans people at all. So like it's like we're both culturally extremely painfully aware of these lines, but also we don't always have to regard them. I don't know how to put it exactly.
Yeah, no, totally. Like I agree with that. Like I would say I am definitely not a woman in the same way that any cis woman is a woman.
hmm
Uh and yeah, like I've always kind of in as much as my general public stance is anti-categorization,
Yes.
um I in my own mental taxonomy of the people around me, I've tended to understand non-binary people as existing in like two different kinds of axes of experience. There's like some people, some they thems out there who are trying to communicate like an internal experience that is like an active feeling of misalignment with either
Yes.
polarity.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are some they thems out there who are communicating a philosophical stance on the nature of gender, but not necessarily like an experience of the way the first group would.
Yes.
And I don't think either is less legitimate. It's
Yes.
just different ways of approaching the idea.
Oh, I totally agree, because like there are definitely people that want to transcend physical lines. Like I knew that HRT was correct for me. The day after my shot, there was like a TV static in the back of my brain that turned off. Like it was like a, that like that high-pitched whine of electronics. It was like that turned off in the back of my head. And I was also in my body. Like I remember like starting it and I was like going throughout the day and I was like, something has shifted. You know what I mean? I was looking at my like hands all the time and being like, something is weird. Like these are closer than they are normally, and they look, like I can remember things. You know what I mean?
These are
like my
this
hand.
This hand is me, not just this thing I control.
Yes, like it was just like something turned off in the back of my head, and suddenly I could experience more emotion, and I could feel things, and I could understand things better. Like I could understand social stuff better too. And there is something to say about like hormones being psychoactive and the remapping of your mind when you like switch dominances, like switch estrogen or testosterone dominant bodies, or like how you play with your hormones. Because like I knew that even if I didn't like the rest of it, because I was unsure when I started that I would like all of the physical changes, I was like, the mental changes feel really good. So like I'm going to probably keep doing this because it feels right.
Yeah, 100%. It's one of the hardest parts of the experience to explain to cis people. It's the shift is very subtle and yet undeniable. What I struggle to understand is how like a trans masculine person, I'm like, you want to go into that? Like, and I don't know if like what they experience on T is at all the same as what I experienced when I was, on T before I started transitioning.
Who knows?
It could be like, I don't know. Like it could be a lot of what I attributed to a testosterone fueled mental experience that I hated had more to do with the fact that like my specific physiology and biochemistry wanted to be on estrogen and that that was the key that made my machine function better. I just don't know.
Yeah, like it was like for me, one of the biggest reasons I started E and I thought this was correct, and I was correct, obviously, is that like I hated my libido before. I hated it. It felt like I was like possessed. Like it felt like very alien to me. It felt very weird. And it's very weird because I liked topping after transition in a way that I never liked before. I also could access sex and kink in its own way. That was a beautiful thing. You know what I mean? In a way that felt personal and true instead of like something that was performative.
Yeah. I mean, I still don't like topping, but for me, I do understand though what you're saying. Like my experience of libido pre-HRT and like a testosterone body, sex was you described it as a possession. I always thought of it as like a compulsion.
Yes,
it was this infuriating itch that like wouldn't go away until it was scratched. But it was not a source of pleasure. It was not it was an alien feeling of being like, it was that possessed feeling, like it was a compulsion, like you felt bad doing it for no reason. You know what I mean? And it was partially the way I was treated like socially, but it was a majority chemically in my brain, you know? Yeah.
I also I always have to say I access transition and gender in a different way than like a lot of Western ideals. Like, of course I was raised in America, but like from the outset, I like looked up like Hawaiian like ideas of gender and expression, like after I was trying to consider this. And the words like
That was the last topic I was about to bring up. So yeah, I'd love to hear about this.
Mahu, like, so it's Mahu, Mahu. There's Maumaine and Mauaine, and that means like trans man and trans woman. But it means kind of like in a lot of conceptions of Hawaiian, it was in like a bigender way. And like it was like for Mauaine, it kind of means like man of body, woman of spirit. Like you kind of embody both realms and can understand. We were like cultural bridges between the sexes in some way. We were also like religious leaders because of our transcendence, because of like we understood both sides in a way that other people could not. So it was like I always approached it in that way of like I want to be whatever I am, and I don't care if it like I like cars, I like lifting things. That isn't all that I do, but they're very masculine hobbies, and I like doing them. But I also like very feminine things. And it's about embodying the masculine and feminine in the exact like mix that only I can do. Like everyone has that, you know what I mean? Like you'll meet cis people that like you'll meet cis guys that are like baseball, sports.
You're looking for guy things?
Yeah, I'm looking for guy things.
Yeah,
like,
baseball,
but they're like
Die Hard.
yeah, see, Die Hard, like Top Gun, and it's not gay. Don't tell me it's gay. Like,
it's not gay.
It's not gay. They're playing volleyball and they're sweaty and oiled up, and that's cool. It's actually about the military-industrial complex. It's not gay. Top Gun was based on a gay pornography book, by the way. I didn't know if you knew that one.
Yeah, just sequel was Bottom Gun.
Sorry, that was... but like that's like their conception of gender is like so close to the masculine ideal that they are just like they're just men. You know what I mean? But I like even cis people, like there's tons of like I align myself a lot with fat cis women because they understand body problems, like they understand inflicted dysmorphia from society. They understand like not being accepted as a woman. It's the same reason I usually like women of color as well, because they usually understand what it is to be othered from womanhood because they can't access it in the correct way according to society. And so, like, because I was informed of all of this, that's partially why I transitioned and present myself in this way as well. Because I was influenced by great women of all kinds, basically.
Yeah, and to add to those groups, also, I think just like lesbians.
Yes.
It's annoying how often lesbians are used to justify the transphobia of straight women, because lesbians on the whole are like the most supportive community of not trans people I've found. Like
I think that people that try to demonize like cis and trans lesbian like intermixing, they're really weird. They have stupid reasons. It's usually because they got dumped one time and they start shadow boxing random scarecrows they've made, and it's like, bro, like you're hitting yourself in the face. You're swinging so hard.
Yeah. But like, it's to your broader point there, I think that's the terms. Can you remember the mahu? It was like two mahus, or
there's wahine and mahine, and one is woman and one is man. It's actually the same word for like woman in several Polynesian languages because they share a lot of roots.
Yeah, because I've read about like fa'afine, which is like
that's the Samoan understanding of trans womanhood, but also kind of by gender as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I reference her a lot. Jenny June is this American, like we would call trans woman from the late 19th century or 20th century. She wrote Autobiography of an Androgyne, but a lot of the language that they use, because it's before the language of transness, is they refer to themselves as androgynes, and they refer to people we would call trans masc as like gynanders, which is just the invert. And like
that's terrible,
right? But those words literally mean, like the Greek literally just means like man, woman, and woman, man.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Like, I think a lot of cis people have this conception, and I won't call it a misconception.
Imprecise.
But cis people have this idea that like when trans women are asserting their womanhood, that they're saying we are exactly the same as a cis woman. And I think like there are unfortunately trans women who have like a fucked up relationship with transness, who really are just desperate to be cis.
And that's like because I've talked to them, and
I
I've
shouldn't
given
say fucked up relation. Fucked up as in like unhealthy for them, not that they
Yes.
are wrong to have that understanding.
Because like I've been a community leader and I've talked to like hundreds of trans people, especially trans women, about these topics and being like, listen, you have to like you take your hormones, fight for better care, eat your food because all of you need to eat more, and then like ignore everyone that has a conception of you, because like society does give us this fucked up relation to everything. Because like if we assert ourselves, it's transmisogyny. It's if we assert ourselves, we're women. If we cow, we are not. If we assert ourselves, we're considered like men. If we assert ourselves in the correct way, we're considered ugly women that are not women correctly, and therefore relegated to, like, basically outside of the ideal of womanhood. And yeah, like I think there's a lot to talk about there, but I think it's like society forces that upon us because like the expectation, like in early transition, I've been attacked physically a lot, like because of my size, because I have muscles, because I'm not apologetic about things, because I walk around and I don't look like the most, I started transition with like a crew cut. So like for the first like 2 years my hair was like to my chin and people were very weird about it. And it's like I've shed blood for this. Like it's something that no one should have to do, to defend themselves in that way. But society does give us that like kind of fucked up relationship of like we need to pass for safety or else people will do a bad thing to us. And then we go like, I didn't pass correctly and I got beat up, which is my fault because society told me it was my fault. And it's like, this is why we fight. This is why we fight for each other. This is why we are siblings. This is why we must share all of this information and love one another as much as we can.
Yeah. I feel like there was like a brief couple years where I was fortunate enough to be coming into my own as a trans person. I started transitioning in 2018, and I am not someone who has ever particularly cared about passing. Like I don't feminize my voice. I'm totally down to bro down with my buds, It's like, and I feel lucky that I got to come of age in a time when it was relatively like as safe as it's ever has been to be someone violating the boundaries of gender in the way that I do. And now it makes me sad how much of trans content I see online now is back to focusing obsessively on passing. And I get it because it's a terrifying time to be trans, but it's like
tightening the tent ain't gonna work. Like I understand the notion, and it's something that like as a large brown trans woman, I've always had to push back because like I've been a community leader and people will voice that kind of sentiment around me, and I'm like, I can't. Like I'm going to be at my thinnest when I was bodybuilding, I was like 190 pounds. I'm Hawaiian. I'm just built big. I haven't worked out in 8 years, but I'm more built than most people. And that's just how it is. I don't have the ability to pass in the same way that a lot of people do. So sometimes when people are like, my skull size is wrong, I'm like, bro, like it's not that. It's that they hate us. And you can't hate yourself into a shape that they like. You know what I mean?
I'm not brown, but I'm similarly like a 6 foot tall, 200-pound person who's, like just kind of naturally a built frame, even though I don't exercise at all intentionally and my muscles won't go away.
I feel that.
And I work with a lot of like teenage trans kids now because of my job as a tutor. And
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, in the last year, there's been a lot of, I work with kids like leaving high school and going to college, and there's been a lot of kind of discussion about like, more so than I'd ever seen in my trans lifetime, about the desire to go stealth. And like, if you are a trans girl who's been transitioning since you were 14, you can usually pretty easily.
Yeah, you can.
And I'm always advocating to these kids. I'm like, I get it. I get how it helps you individually in the near future, but you will then always be living a life of fear of being found out, which ultimately puts you in even more danger than you would have been.
Yes.
Like, if the trans people who can go stealth, it puts the rest of trans people in even more danger. And it doesn't even protect you that much.
Mm-hmm.
But if like all trans people were unapologetically trans and embraced themselves and were who they wanted to be and not who they needed to be for feelings of safety, I think that would make us most safe as a community in the long term. But
Yes, like
it's hard to convince individuals that.
Yes, like the greatest act of resistance is transsexual joy. Like it really is. It is out and about because like I've shed blood for this. So like, and I'm still out. I'm still proud of that. And I make it known that people can come talk to me, that I will fight for you physically if I have to, because like I have loyalty for my trans siblings. I'm not saying that anyone that decides not to is a traitor, but I think sometimes people get very wrapped up in it and they start to hate their own kind. And it bothers me very deeply because I've had people that I talk to that go stealth and they come back a couple years later and they're like, I regret all of that. I just got used by horrible people. And it's like, you have to have community, unfortunately, within the society. And it's like, you've got to tear your way out. Like I've always been an animal, I know. But it's like, I'm always like, if people tried to define me in that way, or like if people tried to hold my transness like captive in that way, I would fight that. I would fight that no matter what it was. I don't care I don't care how bad it is or how much I must suffer. I will fight that. But I am like that, and I've always been like that.
I think it's like, I obviously am so sympathetic to any trans person's fear at this moment. But transness is like the most beautiful, liberating gift if you allow it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, any final thoughts you have? Because I've kept you here for a long time.
It's okay. If you needed me to do this again, I would just do more of it. I like talking to you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely want to keep having conversations with you. I love talking to you, Kalani. I've missed you.
I know, I missed you too. I also I like talking about like the big overarching parts of transness. It's something that like I proselytize. Like I got married, a couple of months ago, and there was a person at the bridal party that goes, they use she they, but like they started talking to me about gender, and they had never really talked about it with anyone else. And they were like, I kind of like want top surgery because they're really big and I don't like them that much and they're not very fun for me. I was like, yeah, do it. Like, start looking into it. If you want resources, I'll help. And they were like, well, like, can I just do that? Like, what do I have to do? And I'm like, nothing. You just have to be comfortable with yourself. And I told them about the parable of the boat that I iterated earlier. And that, like, I saw their brain click into place. I saw them go like, oh, I don't have to care about like all of this other stuff. I can just do what I want to do and like make my body a home. Yeah. And that is the most beautiful feeling. Cause like, I don't care if they pursue that. Like I've given them the tools, I've given them the idea, and whatever they arrive with is going to be perfect for them. And that's okay.
100%.
But we must flow down that river and we have to fight it. You know what I mean? Or like, I don't know how to put it.
Yeah, I mean it's such an interesting idea. It's almost like kind of realizing you can just the river's actually only like 3 feet deep, and you can wade it yourself.
You can just wade it yourself. Yeah,
you don't need to use one of the official boats.
It's also that like one of the reasons I'm so out as like a trans woman that looks like I do and is what I am, is that like I've had tons of people like tell me that it's like that I inspired them in some way to like not go stealth or not be like obsessed with passing or not being obsessed with thinness. Because I was like, yeah, you can be strong, you can be fat, it doesn't matter. Like you have to make a home out of your like your ideals, your current, your past. You have to like make a makeshift nest out of it to hatch your egg. Yeah. And to just live in from that point on as well. You have to make a home of your experiences and what you are. To like fully nurture yourself and be nurtured by other people. You know what I mean?
I love that. And yeah, like constantly reminding myself and people around me that how you are received, especially on social media, is not an indication of how good you are at being
Yes.
trans.
Yes.
The only thing that matters to judge how good you are at being trans is whether or not you're feeling good about being trans.
Yeah, like
are you happy? Are you feeling actualized? Are you nurturing your egg of yourself?
Yeah, like I like being self-actualization is like one of the most important terms for me, because like that's what I would think about all the time, like early transition. And I hung around with, because of my proximity to like community leadership and like running big discords, I was in proximity to like very popular trans people, and a lot of them weren't very happy and were perceived and fetishized in their own way if they were thin or tall or they had different genitals or whatever. Like, it didn't matter what happened or how popular they got. They were received however they could not dictate their own perception. And it was in some ways humbling to me, because I'd never really wanted fame in that way. But to see it, I was like, this kind of sucks, actually, because you just become a caricature of yourself eventually.
Yeah.
Watch Perfect Blue. No, I'm kidding. The avatarization of the soul, and never mind.
I've never seen it, but I won't watch it.
Don't watch it. I'm gonna be honest. Don't like. You should watch it. It has a lot of sexual violence, so I don't think people should watch it.
Oh, I won't watch it. Great. Well, Kalani, thank you so much.
Of course.
I always love talking to you, and I learned so much more about you this time than I ever have. And you get the final word, the final message to give to the future. Well, wait, I forgot. Last interview, I started a thing.
Yeah.
It's actually 3 final questions.
Mm-hmm.
First, is there anything that you would say to a teenage Kalani now?
Oh God, there's like transition, but it's like stop being afraid of people. Like you have to embrace what you are, and you have to like shine. You must, like, people that matter will flock to you. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be this like chameleon that is adhering yourself into a social group. You can just be yourself, and people will naturally like you. And if they don't tell you they don't like you, or they don't tell you that your behavior is bad, then they have no reason to complain, really. You know what I mean? Like, the people who mind won't matter, and the people who matter won't mind. You know, it's like that kind of quote.
Yeah. I know you've already shared a lot of these amazing nuggets with us today, but any final word you would give to the people of today?
People of today is like, be fierce about yourself, but do not be defensive. Like, be what you are. Be a fortress of yourself, but do not be defensive and do not be prickly. You must love. Sometimes loving requires an equal amount of hate, and that's okay, and that's hard to dictate. But you have to love more than you hate, and you have to find the avenues in which we can take care of each other. It is the only way forward. Human civilization is built upon the kindness of each other in our worst and hardest moments.
Beautiful. And Kalani, last words to the future, to the person watching this on their I don't know, what are they watching it? They're watching it on their
iPod 75. I don't know.
Yes, that's right. So the person watching this on your iPod 75, 300 years from now, what's your final message?
I hope y'all got robot bodies, and I also hope that corporations aren't controlling those directly and causing you to do war crimes like they do in Ghost in the Shell. I hope that you're not doing that. I also hope that you guys have crazy genitals, because, like, I'm sorry, there's room to innovate, and also like there's room to innovate, but also having sick robot parts you could just like off of you and then put back on a different one. That sounds sick. I hope we innovate in that. I also hope that I could be like, I can have multiple bodies, so I can have like 8 feet. I could be 8 feet tall, and then I could be 4 feet tall. It'd be sick as hell. Like, I think that I hope that we get to experience the diversity of human experience within a lifetime through the idea of robotic engineering in some way.
I love it. Well, future, I hope you are not watching this on your iPod 75. Then I hope you are an iPod 75. Kalani, thank you so much. Do you want people to be able to find you anywhere? Do you have anything you'd like to promote or plug?
No, not really. Like, I'm on motherdominion.bluesky. That's like the only social media thing I have. besides an Instagram where I only look at tattoos, so it wouldn't help if you. I will not follow you back. I only look at Kansas City tattooing.
Yeah.
Other than that, like, forge your own communities. Like in place of following me, hold a little party, hold a get together, do something in my honor. My name is Mother for a reason in a lot of circles.
That's true. I can confirm. And I'm Sarah. Thank you so much for watching, no matter what time you watched, even if you're teenage Kalani or you're a robot 300 years from now. If you're watching at the time loosely in my lifetime, though, I guess, subscribe and like so I can do more of these.
Agreed.
And otherwise, thanks so much. And yeah, have a. I need a cool sign off.
I know.
Signing off from the past.
And Lonnie.